Hello, people. Welcome to the Lee Cole 3 podcast. I'm here with my partner, James Proctor. James, how are you doing today?
Hey, doing really well. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, but I wasn't planning on doing a show today, and then Hootie Russo. Now, I've had Hootie on my show a couple times, maybe over a little bit a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Uh, but Hootie is going someplace that really doesn't look good on his part. And I'm going to break Hootie down. Right now, he's going after DominicK Cicale. And so you pretty much have an idea what's going on right now, right?
Yeah, so I did watch Hootie's last video that he did where he was talking about basically had a title about bozos in the life, and so he was
So let me get this right. We have a guy that is not made,
hmm
a guy that was a drug dealer, a guy that was looking at 5 years if he did not rat out people. He ratted out his brother-in-law. Is that the guy we're talking about? His family.
yeah, exactly, and so he also and that's true, and so he was just going off on Dominic and mostly Dominic, and then he was talking praise that the real gangsters like Semi Gravano, and then I guess he was making fun of content creators that were made guys that asked for likes and subs on their videos. So it's kind of petty, really, what he was
Okay.
saying.
Well, I'm going to play what he said. How's that?
Hey, that's great.
Okay, let me find it. Here we go, people.
I don't know Don personally. I know his reputation. I have nothing against him. Let him, whatever you're doing. But my listeners want to hear about that. They know I'm on the streets for 38 years. They know I know everything about the life. If you're coming into this, you can't be phony because I'm going to know you, no matter where you're from. So, 100%, he's a thug. He's a gangster with an A, not an ER, even though he was made and a captain. He wasn't respected by none. He was feared. And I know people say rather have fear than respect. I get that. Love and fear, that whole bullshit. But he's a stubborn freak. He doesn't know how to talk the life. He doesn't know how to act the life. He never looked the life. His rabbi in the Gambino family even said in Mickey Paradiso that he's the type of guy that you can't sit down and talk with. He's got no common sense of the life. Tough, killer, so you just got to kill him. You can't, that's the type of guy he was. He doesn't listen to reason. When Al had the beef in Rayos with Vinny Gorgeous, he was the only guy we sat on because we knew that was Vinny's guy, even though we found out later on Vinny was like jealous, kid shit. That Banana family's ass backwards. They just, you don't even know. Let me tell you, I'll give you the quick story about the Bananos. So I go to Vinny and Sarah, and I asked them.
Okay, I don't want to hear that part. Okay. So he's saying that Dominic was feared and was a killer. He basically said that if he came after you, I had to shoot him in the head. They were told to shoot him because if you don't shoot him, he's going to come for you.
Right.
So here's the thing. Here's the Hooties we've known on the last couple of years. This Hootie right here. This Hootie right here. And the current Hootie right here. So this is the current Hootie that we're talking about right here. The many faces of Hootie. So what I wanted to say to you is when you hear this stuff, he's saying this guy's a killer and all that stuff, but then he's saying like the Bananos are a joke. He's like saying that Vinny Gorgeous, who ran that family, was a joke.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that when he talks about Dominic not understand the life. I mean, it's obviously you and I weren't in the life, but sounds like we know more about the life um, than Hootie, because one, you would never have any family, especially Mickey Paradiso, and would never say that you'd have to bring a gun, kill a made guy. They don't talk like that. Number one, and two, the Mickey Paradiso was friends with DominicK. He knew who DominicK was, and Blaze Carasso knew who he was.
And
They sat
DominicK,
down.
and just so you know, people, DominicK, in season 1, episode 9, he talks about the Blaze Carasso, Mickey Boyd Paradiso on the Mafia Roundtable. And he gives a totally different version of the story than Hootie. So here's what we got to decide, people. Do we believe Hootie Russo, or do we believe DominicK Cicale, who was at the meeting? So I'm guessing that maybe we should just believe Hootie, because
Hootie wouldn't even be allowed in the in the room for a sit down like that, number one. And then also a lot of the information he was saying, like DominicK didn't have a crew, all that's not true. He had Ace, Anthony Donato. He was basically a right-hand person to Vinny Gorgeous. And then also, he's saying the Bonanno family's weird because, they don't make it known. They kept stuff that this was, you got to understand, Joe Messino, he was in charge at the time, and he was very much not one of these guys that he didn't want the social clubs. He didn't want people out in the public, saying who they were. He wanted to stay in the background. That's the way that you're supposed to do it. And then also, if you know that 4 of the 5 families were in bad shape. Their administrations had been knocked around, in the 90s. And, the last man standing was Joe Messino. We know he eventually flips, and, they had pretty much everyone flipped there. But, for a while, they were probably the strongest family, for a period of maybe 5 to 10 years.
And he talks about the meeting with Blaze Carasso. Blaze Carasso admitted during that meeting that he told somebody that wasn't made to shoot him, who was a made man. And now, Hootie, did you talk about that? Or, Paradiso, same thing. In season 1, episode 9, he talks about this whole thing. And here it is, almost 3 months later, where Hootie's going to tell us the real story. So Hootie, you just held that back in. Okay, Hootie, I want you to remember one thing. I know you're going to be pissed at me, whatever, but you got to be called out on this guy. I mean, you are not in the. You say how long's he been on the streets? He says.
Yeah, he was saying 38 years, but my understanding is he's 45 at this. He's around 45, so that means what? He's been on the streets since he was 7 or 8. So, yeah,
that is one bad. That is one bad dude. I bet you that he was on the streets and he was dealing when he was 8 years old. He was running. There's no doubt that he was a drug dealer.
He was.
Okay? Yes, there's no doubt. Hootie will say that he took a global plea and he did not rat. That's not true. You ratted out your brother-in-law. It was not a global plea. Okay. And Hootie, when you talk about these guys, I'm going to show you something, and you take this for what you want. Okay, and I'm talking about the informants. Okay, so you're in love with Sammy Gravano. You said that he's the only real guy, but there's Sammy Gravano with John Gotti, right? And here's another informant. This is I'm sorry, 1 second here. This is Mikey Scars, and he's with John Jr. here.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have, look at this. DominicK Cicale, right there with Vinny Gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I want Hootie, put up a picture of you with somebody, please. Do you have a picture of you with any of these guys? What did he say? He was with the Gambino family. He did stuff with them.
Yeah, he was saying he was a associate with them. I know that in 2002 he got. They said before, 2011 when they had the big. It was like a couple hundred people got.
Well, that was a big arrest.
Yeah. Right, but 2002 was when he first got arrested. Was at least not first arrested, but first known to maybe be associated with them. But there was no, he was never made, nothing like that, and he was just a
And
drug
that was a
dealer.
case where he flipped and Howie Santos flipped.
Yeah.
But he testified eventually against his or gave up information on his brother-in-law. And Trucchio was the son was
Alphonse Trucchio. Yeah, that's whose crew supposedly he was with. And that's Ronnie One Arm's son.
And the DA, I'm sorry, the prosecutor came out and said there was no doubt that this guy Hootie ran a lot of drugs and everything. But let's remember, people, this is the prosecutor. This has not been ever proven. This is never going to court. This is what the prosecutors do. They build these guys up so they can testify.
Yeah.
I think that he was a drug dealer. There's no doubt he was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
But Hootie, you got to know your place in history. Your place is so minimal in history. You're not in any of the history books. None. All these other guys that you're talking smack about, they're in the history books. Now, he also talked about a fight, a ball peen hammer attack, which is discussed by DominicK Cicale that he ordered it. And instead of breaking, DominicK told him to go break the kid's hands. They wound up hitting the kid in the head, putting him in the hospital. That's why they had to sit down. But as it turned out, the kid was told if he seen DominicK to shoot him. He was told that by Carrazzo, who was
Blaze Carrazzo.
And Blaze Carrazzo told him to shoot a made man. That Blaze Carrazzo right there telling someone who's not made to shoot a made man is breaking the rules.
Yeah, DominicK could have asked for his head, because of it. And so Ace had actually went over there and had to bust him in the head. And so the guy went into critical condition and all that, but he was strapping. And so, there wasn't, he didn't have a choice. So, I mean, the thing is, what Blaze did was just idiotic. You don't do that. And also a made person, doesn't matter which family they're in the eyes of the mafia, they're always right, over an associate. So, it didn't look well for Blaze.
It didn't look well for Blaze, and for why Hootie decided he was going to, maybe Hootie needs, I don't know, Hootie, you've been here quite a while, and I think you're at 4,000, you're not building that fast. And Hootie, for you to question people, the things that you've done on here, I'm not going to get into what you've done on here, where people mocked you and stuff, and your relationships and all that stuff, and you get over there and you start yelling and screaming, and now you're calling a guy that was actually a boss. Whether you like it or not, he was a boss. Whether you like it or not, if you met him in the street and said something to you, he would have put you down easily. And now, being that you know that his life is good, and then you said that he's a dummy, and that he got his stuff from a book. Did you really say that? He said he said that DominicK must have got his stuff from a book to be a mobster. Do you realize that he's in the Bronx with Vinny Gorgeous?
Yeah.
So did Vinny give him the book when he met him? He said, "Here, is there like a book like that they have when you start a new job? Is it one of those type of books?"
Well, and I don't think he realized that as well that in Florida he was associated, both in Bronx and Florida, he's associated with talking about DominicK, with the Genovese family. And so he goes to prison. He's around those guys, he's around, he spent about 10 years. And so, they knew who he was when he got out.
He spent his time in prison with Bruno Indicado, who got a hold of Vinny. And so were you in prison ever before you got busted? No, you weren't in prison. And when you were looking at a sentence, you were looking at 5 years, you rolled. Okay. You could say what you want. Is DominicK a rat? Yes, he is. He says he's a rat. But did he do long times in prison? Yes, he did. Not only did he do a long time in prison, Hootie, he did it with top guys, made guys. Hootie, what made guy do you have evidence that you associated with? You know them by name and you talk to them. Do you understand when they came out their house and they seen you sitting somewhere, and then you say that Dominic was a gangster with an A. But aren't you? You still start your shows out by going, "Hey, boy." I don't hear Dominic starting his shows like that. James?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to me when people make comments like that, I don't even understand what he's thinking by doing that. He tries to come across to his followers that he's 100%, he's real, that, and then he tries to say you don't have to be a made guy to know the street, which that's true, but the other stuff isn't, and so. I just don't. I just thought it was pretty wild what he's saying about Dominic, and then any sort of relationship with Sammy. I don't believe he has any relationship with him. He definitely wasn't around him when he was on the street. I guess they both did Vlad TV, and maybe they knew each other from there. I don't know.
Yes, they did Vlad TV, and I'm not going to get into the Vlad TV part because I discussed it a couple years ago with Hootie.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to bring up that part. But what I'm going to bring up is the fact that you're okay. So these two guys right here, whether you like them or hate them, I'm not sure what your feelings are toward Mikey, but you said that the only real guy on here is Sammy. So you saying that Mikey isn't at the same level as Sammy? I hate to break the news to you, but he is. The only reason Sammy's famous is because he became a rat. If Sammy doesn't become a rat, he's no more famous than the next guy.
Yeah. Well, he does talk a little bit about Mikey Stars, where he said that was the smartest guy around, I guess, made guys, saying that he knew all the 5 families. He did know all the 5 families,
but see, this is what he is. If you listen to his conversation,
yeah, it's contradictory. That was kind of what I was going to say.
Every 2 minutes, he contradicts what he previously said. So he's saying this about Mikey, but then he goes and says that the only real guy on here is Sammy.
Right, and then he's saying about Dominic. Oh, well, he was a tough guy. He was a killer, all that. Has no disrespect for him, but then he disrespects him the next, 2 minutes later. It's just kind of strange to me.
I like to know if Hootie was at that meeting where he's trying to say what was covered 3 months ago in season 1, episode 9 on DominicK Cicale show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, would you consider, and be honest about this, would you consider Hootie a gangster or a prankster?
Yeah, prankster is what I would consider him, mainly because of I don't know much about him except about there's a few articles about him. It's always around him being involved as a drug dealer, and he did a lot of selling of narcotics. But as far as being anything in that life, no one really knows him. It has to be a prankster. I mean,
the people that know, here's what I think. I think that people know him on the street, but they know him as a drug dealer.
Yeah.
I don't think he was a gangster. I think he was a drug dealer. And
yeah, exactly.
There's a big difference between a drug dealer and a gangster. If you wanted to deal drugs in your neighborhood, Hootie, you had to you had to take care of the gangsters, otherwise.
Yeah, you had to pay up. Yeah, you had to have protection. So, the thing was, he wasn't involved that I have any evidence of like other rackets, like gambling, for example, or sports books, or any of those rackets that that normally that you would have, even with a lot of the associates and low level made guys, some of the basic rackets, so the only thing we know is about the drug dealing. And so, more of what it is more, he was associate mainly, he's probably on record with, I'm sure, but, he had to kick up because, he was dealing drugs in Queens.
So when he was 8 years old, he started kicking up, do you think? I mean, do you think it was...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just a little unusual, to be honest.
Well, I hear that he was kicking his money up to this guy right here. This is what I hear. And that's just...
Oh
That,
God.
I just want to get your face. You see his face, people. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
So Hootie was kicking up to Tony Pizza. That's about the only person you were kicking up to, Hootie. No, I'm sorry. Hootie was definitely kicking up. But, you know, and you are definitely a drug dealer, but you're also a guy that was looking at 5 years and you flipped.
Yeah.
5 years, dude.
Hmm.
And
I
then
guess he was on other shows, right? He had I think he was maybe with JC one time and other people as a co-host. I
they
mean,
had a falling out. I think they corrected it. They fixed it. I'm not sure.
yeah.
Uh, Hootie does a show. Actually, Hootie can be entertaining, but when you're not going to be entertaining, when you go after a guy that is very successful, you got to remember, DominicK Cicale's only been on here for a few months, and he's already more successful than you, Hootie. Like
Yeah.
10 times more successful.
Yeah, and that's true. And what it ends up boiling down to is that, one of the things we talk about with these guys that, you have guys that totally are frauds. I don't put him in that category. But then, when we talk about pranksters versus gangsters, we're talking about, are they being truthful or not? Were they really in the life? And so the second part's embellishment, right? I think that's where he falls into it, is the embellishment, where he talks about stuff that he wasn't really involved with, maybe heard it second or third hand, or just making up stuff, and he's trying to embellish his story so that it's in his eyes more relevant than it really was.
I like to ask you, because we did a lot of research on DominicK. So Hootie, do you know that when DominicK did his murder down and he went to prison for murder down in Florida, who was on that murder with him? If you do research, you would discover what Genevieve's person it was with him. We're not going to say it here.
Yeah.
But it was a very big guy. So since DominicK's been a young guy in his early 20s, he's been around these guys. I mean, doing work with them. You were dealing drugs, dude.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you were doing what they claimed wasn't allowed to be done in the mob.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also what you see about, so supposedly he was involved for 38 years in the street, but he was pretty much out at, I would say 10 years would probably be reality. But the difference is that you have DominicK that started off, he did start off doing drug dealing. That's what DominicK did, but he was able to elevate past that. He went to prison, then gets involved and was successful. And it is true that he made millions on the street, but Hootie never got to that level. He stayed as a neighborhood drug dealer.
And you were on the streets for a long time, Hootie. I mean, you're talking. I want to play something that Hootie was on my show one time before, and I just like to play this because it actually made sense back then when Hootie was more mellow and was not all into himself. Let me see this. I could find it. Okay. I'm looking for it. Here we go. What do you think of all these wars all this fighting going on between everybody?
I got serious problems in the streets. I'm not worried about any. I don't pay attention to the stuff going on YouTube.
When you say you have serious problems, when you say you have serious problems in the street, what do you mean by that?
Well, I got beefs with guys that I tell stories about that are still in Cosa Nostra. I got beefs with drug dealers that I mentioned in my stories. These guys, you don't want to be mentioned, don't want to be talked about. And the guys that I don't hear from or get messages from, because I get messages all the time. And the ones that I don't hear from are the ones you got to worry about. You think you just can talk about these guys and walk around the neighborhood like it's okay? Listen, I tell everybody, you may think the life is dead, but the people that involved in it and were involved in it aren't dead. They're walking the streets.
So do you see something happening here pretty soon where something bad's going to happen because of all this shit?
It's terrible.
Okay. So he seems much different if you looked at him there compared to now, doesn't he?
Yeah, and what's interesting is how, it's not a big deal, really, I guess. It seems like he changes his appearance a lot, doesn't he? I just noticed how he looked there.
Get out of here. No. Yeah. Okay. This guy looks like this guy.
Mm-hmm.
who looks like this guy. It's all the same guy. I think that he's hiding. He's in the neighborhood of, and he's known in his neighborhood as a guy that flipped.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that went back to the neighborhood. So that's another thing, Hootie. How you said you were sitting across from a Genovese soldier on the other side of the street, and that he didn't attack you or care. That's what you're saying. We don't know these stories. These are the stories. See, Hootie, the difference between your story, say Mikey Scars, or say Sammy Gavano's, or say DominicK Cicale, is that we can actually research them and look them up. We can't look we're going by hearsay. You're giving hearsay what happened at a meeting where DominicK Cicale did it. He talked about the meeting and he was there. So do we believe hearsay, or do we believe who's there? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it really does. And just, that's really was my issue with this, just hearing, what he's saying about him that just isn't accurate. And we just have to point it out. I mean, that's one of the things that we're doing here is not that we know everything, but we can research items, and when we see that something's being portrayed inaccurately, we're going to call it out.
And it has nothing to do with us associating with Dominic.
No,
this is
not at all.
This is something I decided to do. I got a hold of James. I didn't talk to Dominic about this. So, because it just didn't sound right, and you don't talk about and one more time, we'll go over this one more time, Hootie. You said you took a global plea. When I said that you flipped on your brother-in-law, the very first time before I met you, you called me up and you were threatening to sue me and stuff because I said this stuff. But it's all over. You can go to any Jerry Capisci article. You can go to any newspaper articles. They all say the same thing, that you flipped. It doesn't say that you took a global plea. And with that, anything you want to say to close us out, James?
No, it's just that, we're going to continue to have these gangster, prankster segments. I mean, a lot of it's in fun, but at the same time, we do want to, point out when there's, hypocrisy or lies or things that just doesn't make sense. So, we just want to make sure history's, being portrayed accurately as much as it can.
That's right. And and this is my belief, you are a prankster that wanted to be a gangster, but you were a drug dealer.
Yes.
That's how I look at it. There's no doubt you were a drug dealer. There's no doubt that you knew guys in the street. But show us some pictures. Show us something of you with somebody, like with Paradiso. I mean, all these guys back there, all these pictures taken, all these surveillances that were done against the most surveilled family there was.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the Gambino family. You don't. Where are you in these? I haven't seen anything. James, have you seen anything?
No, I haven't seen anything. And then, one point I wanted to make that I didn't understand. He claims, Hootie claims that he had met with Vinny at least twice, and I just don't see that happening. That you're an associate from another family that's going to meet with Vinny. If they were friends from, maybe that would be different. But
and he said he was sitting on Dominic.
Yeah, I just don't understand that. That was a very strange. Yeah, sitting on Dominic. So
yeah,
I don't.
Why? I mean, what are you going to do? You're not a made man or anything. And what evidence is there that you were a badass out in the street? When you were a fighter out in the street? What evidence is there?
Yeah, no evidence of that.
Okay, you might be the baddest ass in the world, but I don't see the evidence. Okay, that's it. People, please subscribe, hit the link, and the reminder bell. Thank you. It's been running underneath here throughout this whole show. And underneath here, I will also have, if you want to donate, there's a donation link. If you don't, that's fine with us. But we hope you enjoy this and have a nice one. James, thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.